Day 14, Belated Update. June 30th, 2006. I do have the best intentions, honest. How hard can it be to update your blog regularly, even when it's not a blog? Sigh, too hard for me it would seem. I know there are folks who do it every day, but... Actually, I have added new entries to this journal half a dozen times since the last post you read here. In my head, anyway. It's just getting the words down on phosphor, that proves to be the problem. Of course, getting the words down has always been the hard part. If it wasn't hard, everyone would be a writer. Let's see. I went to Markin in Columbus, Ohio last month, did a few panels, read a chapter from A Dance with Dragons, had some drinks with some of my readers. The Markin folks were great hosts. On the way back, I stopped in Chicago to visit with my old friend and one-time collaborator, Lisa Tuttle, who now lives in Scotland but was passing through Chicago on the way back from Wisconsin. We had a great time catching up, and visited my favorite restaurant in the world, the Greek Islands in Greektown, where we ate flaming cheese and shouted, "Opa!" There are some who will tell you that Oprah Winfrey has grown so huge in Chicago that the waiters in the Greektown eaters now shout, "Oprah!" when they set the cheese on fire, but I can testify that this isn't true. I also took an L ride up to my old stomping grounds in Uptown one afternoon and was startled by the changes. The apartments I lived on Margaret Terrace and Argyle are still there, but that's about it. The grocery stores I shopped in, the bar where I drank beer and played that high-tech video game Pong, the newsstand where I bought my comic books and the first issue of Analog to feature my story on the cover, the diners where I used to have my breakfast, even the friendly neighborhood titty bars where I used to do sociological research, all of them are gone. Argyle is nothing but Oriental groceries and Vietnamese restaurants now. The saddest part was seeing the boarded-up ruins of the Uptown and Riviera movie houses, where I sat in the dark and saw so many films back in the early 70s. The Uptown in particular needs to be saved. It was one of Chicago's largest and grandest movie palaces. Anyway, after I got back, I figured I'd write a trip report about Columbus and Chicago for Not a Blog. But I didn't. Here in Santa Fe, our home renovations have been going ahead like, well, I was going to say gangbusters, but housebusters would be more accurate. 3/4 of what we own is in storage, and the construction crew has ripped off the roof of our house, torn out the ceilings and most of the walls on floors 2 and 1.5, filled several huge dumpsters with chunks of what used to be our home. They keep telling us they are going to put it all back together twice as nice as before, but some days I wonder. Meanwhile, Paris and I are living in my office across the street, which is nearly big enough for the two of us, and Caligula and Augustus too. Another 3 months and it will all be done, they say. I hope so. I was thinking I would write a long piece for Not a Blog about the trials and tribulations of home renovation, but of course I didn't. I have had various visitors since my last update here, most recently Howard Waldrop, who passed through on his way to Rio Honda's writer's workshop in Taos, and again on the way back. Howard's visits never last long enough. He and I have known each other since 1963, when I bought Brave and Bold 28 from him, first JLA, don't you know, for a quarter, and we began to correspond. We were both in high school in those days, writing for comics fanzines. I was writing superhero stories in prose, and he was writing post-Holocaust sword and sorcery about a hero called the Wanderer and the Chronicles of Chimwazzle. I keep telling Howard that I want the next Wanderer story, but he never listens. He's writing stuff about a guy named Tom Perdue instead, or at least that's the story he told me to tell. I thought I might put something up here about Howard and his visit, but I didn't. Oddly enough, I am still writing superhero stories in prose, or editing them at least. One of the big items since my last update here is the rebirth of Wildcards, which I am very excited about. The Wildcards series has been part of my life since 1985, though admittedly, there was one 7-year hiatus in there. And some of the characters go all the way back to 1983, when some of the New Mexico gang created them for an RPG called Superworld. It's a world I love, and one I feared that I might have lost when our last publisher went bankrupt. But Tor Books stepped in and saved the day, and Wildcards is coming back bigger and better than ever, with new stories, new writers, and new characters. I thought about writing that here, but instead I wrote it for my news page. So go read the details there, and then go out and read a Wildcard book. Please, I promise you, it's good stuff. Paris and I saw Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth last week. It is a powerful and persuasive statement, and surprisingly entertaining. And Gore exudes so much warmth and intelligence that I still wonder how the country could have chosen George W. Bush instead in 2000. Oh wait, I forgot we didn't. Just those rascals on the Supreme Court. Speaking of W, must we? I see that when he was asked if he intended to see Gore's film, he replied, "Doubt it," with one of his patented monkey smirks. You know, it is irritating enough that this president is so ignorant about so many things, but what really infuriates me is that he wallows in his ignorance and seems to take great joy in it. No, of course he is not going to see an inconvenient truth. He might have learned something. Anyway, I did think about writing some political stuff here, but I didn't. I could go on. There are a whole bunch of other subjects I considered adding to Not a Blog. Some of them I even wrote in my head. The stuff I write in my head. Of course, judging by my emails, very few of you would have cared much about my visit to Chicago, or Howard's visit here, or my home renovations, or even global warming. You should care about global warming, however, and if you don't know why, go see the Gore film. Al explains it much better than I could. All my emails are about A Dance with Dragons. I made the mistake of saying on my update page that I would update again in April, and I didn't. Mea culpa. The thing is, I have posted several updates here, and I thought that would suffice, but it would appear that a good percentage of the folks who visit my website go straight to update and never check out any of the other pages or links, including this one. I promise I'm going to update real soon now. Meanwhile, for those who do read this page, yes, I am still working on A Dance with Dragons, and yes, I still hope to deliver it this fall, or by the end of the year at the latest. I also have other news about A Song of Ice and Fire, a couple of things actually that I think will please and excite fans of the series. Unfortunately, I can't talk about them yet. Watch my news page though. I should have a few big announcements in the next few months. I hope I will be back here for another Not a Blog before that, but I'm not promising. Heart mood, null. Wow, it's actually crazy that in June of 2006 he thought that he would have A Dance with Dragons done in, by fall of that year. Or even by the end of 2006. Which just makes me think, how much did he have done at this point? I mean, surely it was most of the book if he's saying something like this. I mean, he couldn't, because it took him another 5 years, right? Yeah, another 5 years. And, I mean, when you consider that, it's just strange that he thinks that he would have been done in 2006. I mean, I know that there was the Myronese knot, but the Myronese knot could not have taken years and years to sort out, unless, his writing must have dramatically slowed because of wildcards and, the HBO deal and working out the pilot of a Game of Thrones TV show and, all of that. I mean, still, it is really wild to hear him say that. Anyways, I hope that, well, I assume The Winds of Winter has indefinitely been in a very similar situation. And it kind of shows that even if 75% of the book is done, it doesn't make a strong indication as to whether or not it's going to come out soon or later. I mean, it does seem that he thinks when he gets on a roll, he can write, massive amounts. And 25% of the book, 400 manuscript pages, let's say. Could he write that in a year if he had no distractions? I mean, I definitely think he could. But unfortunately, he has a lot more projects than he did in 2006. So yeah, that's what I think of this. See you guys next time.